and just whatever observations or evaluations or looking to the future about this conference you'd like to make.
Okay. I'm Chris Conrad. I'm the author of the book Hemp, Lifeline to the Future, as well as Hemp for Health, and my wife and I wrote Shattered Lies, Portraits from America's Drug War, and Human Rights in the U.S. Drug War. I'm also the curator of the Hash Marijuana Hemp Museum in Holland, as well as the editor-in-chief and proprietor and publisher of the West Coast Leaf. And I was here for this conference to, number one, to learn the new information, of course, about cannabis, but also I was a presenter where I gave information about my booklet called Cannabis Yields and Dosage, which covers information sourced from the federal government, essentially, that discusses the amounts of marijuana that are consumed by chronic pain patients and other people who use heavy doses on a daily basis, which comes into multiple pounds per year, and the fact that in order to grow that, it takes a certain amount of area and the right kind of growing conditions to make that all work out. And so essentially what I was trying to do was to challenge the notion that a lot of people have, where they think just a very small amount of marijuana is adequate for people who have chronic conditions, because oftentimes what we find instead is that people who, regardless of what their health condition is, meaning whatever the disease is, if the symptoms that are being controlled are going to be more or less constant, that means that the person who's using the cannabis to control them is going to have to consume it more or less constantly every hour or so, or else if they eat it, it would be every few hours. And so as a natural result of that is people often end up with larger amounts of marijuana in the 3 pounds category, or even 6 pounds that they may require from their garden in the course of a year, even up to 12 pounds. And I've known of people who get 24 and 28 pounds. Well, of course, you can understand the problem is that when law enforcement sees someone with 6 or 12 pounds of marijuana, they're not going to think, oh, this person has such a severe condition that they need to use it on a daily basis in large amounts. They're going to think this person is selling the marijuana. And so what I do as a court expert is to discuss these issues. And so my opportunity at this conference was to bring the same kind of information which is relevant for a judge or a jury to understand it, so that doctors can also understand that, because basically it's the doctor's recommendation that is going to be the basis of whatever the outcome is, at least here in California, where the issue is whether it's a reasonable amount for a patient to have at any given time and how much they might reasonably be expected to need and use. So from that to that extent, I was able to share some information that is very difficult to get hold of, actually. I'm one of only a handful of experts in the country who get to testify about this stuff in court, and my background is because I grew marijuana over in Europe, and so I have legal gardening experience that gives me an opportunity to get in onto those kind of issues. But my sense of a lot of this, what we talk about at these conferences, that they're looking for things that marijuana helps and things that conditions where it may be not particularly useful or could even be harmful, and to identify those. But the real issue of where the rubber hits the road, which is probably not the greatest metaphor, but nonetheless, the real issue for most patients is what kind of medicine can I get? How do I need to process it to handle my symptoms, and what kind of garden or capacity do I need to have in order to make sure that I have a continuous supply to take care of my own health? And that's essentially what I felt was a missing component in previous conferences here, that they were so kind as to allow me to present at this conference. What I'm hoping for the future is to just continue to come to these conferences, and that the continued escalation of facts and truth into the system will eventually force the federal government to rethink its cruel and arbitrary ban on marijuana. And when I say arbitrary, I believe it's deliberate. I don't really think it's arbitrary to the extent that it could have been anything, but they chose to ban cannabis. I mean it's arbitrary because there's no scientific, moral, or political reason why it should be banned. And so I really appreciate what Pages Out of Time has done by presenting these kind of conferences, and my opportunity to be here over the years, and now an opportunity to present to other people. So I'm very excited about where we're going as a movement and where this is going as a political issue. One last point I would like to bring out, though, is that one of the sections that we were here to discuss here, in addition to all the scientific clinical data and statistics, was the discussion about the way the media covers the issue of medical marijuana and marijuana in general, normally picking out some sensational but inaccurate claim, pumping it up in the headline and the lead into an article, and then you don't find out that the real information contradicts it, shows up towards the end of the article and so forth. And so my awareness of this as a problem is very much in accord with what I heard here today at the conference, which is why I've worked to develop the West Coast Leaf as a newspaper where patients and reformers and scientists can get their information to the public in a way that's not going to be filtered by government censors and media exploitation of something which is in fact a rather normal and mainstream part of American society today, people using marijuana either for personal or for medical purposes. And I know that the focus of this conference today was on the medical and that's distinct from personal, but my own belief is that as long as the personal use is going to be persecuted, the government's not going to allow the kind of research that we're going to need for people to really fully understand the scientific basis of medical marijuana. And so that's why, even though one could say, well, legalize medical but not personal use, I cannot say that, because I think as long as the government uses the personal use of marijuana as an excuse to abuse science and people and our rights and our scientific knowledge, that we're not going to really be able to understand things as well as we need to, and as much as people have a right to. And I think it's offensive to democracy when government abuses its people, and I think it's an offense to the media when reporters choose, instead of looking for the truth, to put out hysteria. And that's what's driven me to the point of actually having to start my own newspaper, just because I think we need some honesty in this country, and I'm prepared to deliver it.
Well, we appreciate your work.